Pokemon Nuzlocks are pretty standard. You travel the region looking for Pokemon to become the ultimate champion. And if you find a shiny along the way, you accidentally kill it. But what if I were to do something completely different? What if I were to use all Pokemon in my arsenal against people across the world? This would include Pokemon that would have different forms like Lycanroc and Zoroark, as long as they have a different ability, stat change, or moveset. But I really need to challenge myself. That's why all of my Pokemon will be randomly selected, and if a Pokemon dies, I won't be able to use it again. I want to see if I can win more than lose more using a random team. But I already have a sneaky suspicion of what will happen. The first battle didn't go as bad as I thought it would. Probably because I had two Paradox Pokemon right off the bat. Orthworm couldn't do anything to Skeleturge, so I had to swap into Iron Moth. But I had no moves that could hurt it, and Donphan was also right there. So eventually, I made the right decision, and I was able to take it out with a single Earthquake. As he sent out Meowscarada, I switched out into Staraptor, and one Brave Bird does the job. Chien Pao is way faster, and if I can save Staraptor, I will. So Orthworm comes back out. Finally, my opponent remembers how to switch and brings out Great Tusk. But the son of a bitch knocked off my Citrus Berry and I can't touch it. But luckily, I have Shudtail so I can bring in Fluttermane safely. He then switches into Garganacl while I hit it with the Moonblast. Eventually, he does Terrasilize into a Poison type, and since I'm Specs, I can't hurt it. He does go for Salt Cure, but it doesn't take out my substitute. So I bring in Medicham, and Garganacl goes down in 2 Psycho Cuts. He brings Chien Pao back out and goes for a Throat Chop, which would kill me if I didn't have a Focus Sash. So I take it out with a quad effective close combat. As he sends out Greninja, I realize that I have no good switch-ins and I have to let Medicham go. The first death of this challenge. Fluttermane comes back out and I take out Greninja with a Thunderbolt. His last Pokemon is Great Tusk, so I swapped out into Staraptor. And one Brave Bird is able to win me the battle, but at the cost of Staraptor also going down. Regardless, the first battle resulted in a victory, so now you're probably thinking, maybe this won't be as terrible as you thought, right? Right? With Staraptor and Medicham gone, the replacements were looking a little grim, but that doesn't mean it was impossible to win. This battle starts off with low kicks, taking down to my Focus Sash with Hatena. Which sucks because all I wanted to do was paralyze it with Nuzzle. But then he tries to paralyze me with Thunder Wave, but I have Magic Bounce. But Good as Gold negates the paralysis, and I thought that was just funny. But since he knows I can't do anything, he tries to set up a Nasty Plot. So I switch out into Iron Moth as he sends up another Nasty Plot, but a Fiery Dance gets rid of the potential threat. After he sends out Greninja, I swapped into Fluttermane while he goes for U-turn and sends out Chien Pao. But I didn't expect Sucker Punch, and as strong as Fluttermane is, the defense for it is horrid. He switches out into Ditto after I bring in Orthworm. We both set up Stealth Rock on each other and then spam Body Press until it's squished. After that, Iron Treads knocks off my Citrus Berry again, and uses Rapid Spin to get rid of the Stealth Rock. But I got revenge by taking it out with 2 Body Presses. Eventually, the low kicks does take out my Orthworm and flees like a bitch. I send in Cloyster against Greninja, but he takes me out in 1 hit. I could have lifted off my Focus Sash if the Stealth Rock wasn't up. At this point, I have no choice but to Terrasilize. And of course, Dark Pulse flinched. So a second one took it out. I send in Donphan, and after being hit with the Dark Pulse, I take it out with a Play Rough. But regardless of my efforts, the low kicks comes in and takes out Donphan. And when I send out Hatena, it dies to Stealth Rock, which means the first loss on the board with 8 deaths in total. But you know, with a new team, we were ready to take on the world. Yep, that makes sense. And now, just look at my opponent's team. How do you think this battle went? No surprise, huh? But that's okay, because I got one of the most powerful Pokemon in this game, Koraidon. I was so confident in Koraidon's abilities, because no one else could do anything, that I decided to lead off with it, which was perfect since I was able to take it out with a single U-turn. After we send out our next Pokemon, I try to take out the Abomasnow with the Power Gem, but it just missed the kill, and Golduck goes down to a Giga Drain. I send out Koraidon again to revenge kill it with a U-turn, but he switches into Ceruledge. Would have been real good if I saw a Golduck. Later he sends in Abomasnow to counter Hippopotas while I set up Stealth Rock. I swapped into Shelter as a sack to bring in Koraidon. I called out he'd set in Ceruledge again, so I went for Outrage, which completely destroyed it. After she sends in Hydreigon, which you might think is a terrible choice, but she terrestrializes into a Steel type. And it outsped me, which meant it must have had a choice about it. Koraidon was the carry for this team, so with it gone, there was nothing I could do. Especially when my internet went out. Let me ask you something. What's one of the most annoying things about the Pokemon games? Is it bad shinies? Are the games too easy? No. It's finding a player that uses a full defensive team and lands a Fissure on your only good defensive Pokemon. The battle after that wasn't so bad. Except for normal type Dragonite. Way too powerful. As you can see, I was struggling. 6 losses back to back. But this time around, I had a decent team. I set up a Reflect against King Gambit before having to switch out to Wo-Chien. He then swaps out into Pyroar while I go for Elite Seed. But since I can't touch him, I swap out into Braviary while he misses a Heat Wave. He predicted a fighting move, so then swapped into Slowking. So I brought Wo-Chien back out, and I got paralyzed. He swaps into Pyroar and goes for a Heat Wave while I miss a Leech Seed. I stalled him for a bit before he switched into Jolteon, terrestrialized, and took me out. So I do the same with Espeon, but of course he has a Focus Sash. He switches out like a bitch instead of just letting Jolteon die. So I swap since I'm Specs and paralyzes Braviary. As you can tell, I'm already getting tired of this. It's so tedious, so I'm just gonna skip the end. I was screwed either way you put it. The next battle, I tried to go for the funniest strat in Pokemon. Focus Sash plus counter. Unfortunately, it didn't work out as I planned. I bring in Revavroom to counter Iron Valiant as it goes for Spirit Break. And they have the audacity to go for Destiny Bomb. Great. He then sends out this abomination and goes for a flip turn after I eat it with Crunch. I also forgot that Iron Bundle can learn Freeze Dry, so Floatzel goes down. Freeze Dry doesn't do much to Hatterene, so I start setting up Calm Mind. He switches into Tinkaton while it takes a Psychic fairly well. The Tinkaton does outspeed me on the next turn and goes for a Thunder Wave, but again, Magic Bounce. So he just paralyzes himself. And one Mystical Fire does the job. Afterward, he sends in Palafin, and since I have no good switch-ins, Hatterene goes down. At this point, the battle was a loss. Palafin was just too strong for the rest of my team to handle. In the next battle, my opponent set up hazards while I take it down with 2 flamethrowers. The hardest part of this challenge is the potential chance of you not having a counter to any of your opponent's Pokemon. Quaquaval was scared to take on Slowking, so they brought in Baxcalibur. After paralyzing it and using Future Sight, I go for Chilly Reception, swapping out Slowking. When I brought in Goodra, I accidentally terrestrialized and went for Hydro Pump. Luckily, they stayed in and took it out with the Terra Blast. They then bring in Tinkaton, so I go for a Fire Blast, but it just misses the KO. So a Gigaton Hammer takes Goodra out. I immediately set in Hippowdon, and then the Tinkaton goes for a knockoff, so I counter with Earthquake. After he brings in Quaquaval, I switch into Slowking as it goes for Aqua Step. He switches into Kilowattrel, so I switch into Hippowdon. The Kilowattrel then goes for a Brave Bird, surprisingly, but it doesn't KO, so I keep going for Slack Off until I decide to switch into Sylveon. Then Kilowattrel goes for Uproar. This is how I knew I would win. This guy has no idea the optimal way to play this game. Luckily though, I took out Kilowattrel with the Hyper Voice. Then comes a Terrastalized Quaquaval. I bring in Slowking to counter. He kept going for Aqua Step, so I slowed him down with Thunder Wave. He switches out after I go for a Future Sight into Skeledirge. I also paralyze the Skeledirge and take it out with the Future Sight. Since my opponent realizes the inevitable, they cancel the battle. Finally, after 8 losses in a row, I got my second win. The next battle starts off with the First Impression and the Thunder Wave. We both switch out into another Pokemon with having to switch again due to bad type matchups. But it was a terrible choice in the end, and Flaffy really just became a sack. I bring Sylveon out while he switches into Decidueye. I go for Hyper Voice, which activates my Throat Spray, and one more Hyper Voice does the job. He then brings in Lokix, and the last thing I expected was for First Impression to take me out. Let me tell you, that truly surprised me. I bring in Kingambit to avenge the Fallen and take it out with Iron Head. Tauros comes out, so I switch into Slowking. After a close combat, he goes for a Trailblaze while I go for Slack Off, and another later. He then switches into Greninja while I switch into Hippowdon. I keep spamming Slack Off until I go for Whirlwind, so his Pokemon can take damage from Stealth Rock. I then switch into Slowking again. After he goes for Wild Charge, I stupidly let Slowking die when I had an easy switch into Hippowdon. But I kinda let it die too. Thankfully, the Tauros does go down to the sand screen. But this is where my plan comes into play. With Kingambit's Supreme Overlord ability, I can take out his last 2 remaining Pokemon. If he didn't cancel the battle, that is. That makes 2 wins in a row. I wonder, does this mean that my luck is actually starting to turn around? No. After this battle, I proceeded to lose 6 more times in a row. And I can't even show you how I lost the 6th battle because I wasn't recording, and it actually was a pretty good battle. Sorry, I was genuinely upset about that at the time. Thankfully though, I was able to win the next battle, mostly due to Great Tusk. He was also able to carry in the next battle as well. But I lost the following 3 games in horrible fashion. The next battle is a long one. So let's just say that the battle ended with Chansey and the possible Rage Grip. And the one after that wasn't a battle I expected to win either. Not with this team at least. I lead off with Chansey, and they lead off with Masquerain. They set up a Quiver Dance while I set up a Stealth Rock. Then they set up a Sticky Web while I paralyzed it. And then Dragonite came in, and so I tried to go for Thunder Wave again. But my opponent was smart enough to have Safeguard. I tried to spam Seismic Toss, but it has Roost, and I eventually get hit by a Dragon Tail. Fortunately, I have Ice Fang on my boss tip, but they switch it to Murkrow, so 2 of those take it out, while it sets up a Tailwind. Breloom, of course, being a bad matchup, I switch into Tauros, but get put to sleep by Spore. I switch it to my boss tip as it sets up a Sword Stance. He then goes for Bullet Seed, which doesn't KO, so I easily take it out with a Play Rough. After he sends in Medicham, I let my boss tip go since Tauros was still asleep and I was trying to save my other Pokemon. This is where Clop comes in clutch. After I Terrasilize and get hit with a Drain Punch, Clop's Anger Shell activates and takes down Medicham, Zangoose, and Dragonite to win the battle. I never thought this crab would be this useful. Unfortunately, I wasn't so lucky with the next battle. Adding Slowbro to the team gave the team some more bulk, but his was just a better team. In the following battle, the team was just better, not to mention that they only brought 4 Pokemon with them into the battle. You've probably noticed at this point that there's a certain trend going on here. If I win one battle, I tend to lose the next 5 or so. This just goes to show you what I do for content, which is why you should subscribe. Please. In the next battle, we have a Surskit Ditto while the both of us spam Giga Drain until I eventually win. Since we also set up Sticky Web, I was able to outspeed Decidueye and do some chip damage with Icy Wind before Surskit goes down. I sent in Avalugg, and after he hit Low Kick, Avalanche was enough to take it out. After he sends in Chi-Yu, I somehow live a Heat Wave and I can take it out with a body press. He sends in Dragonite, and instead of going for any other move, he chooses Ice Beam, which doesn't kill, so Avalanche again. There's nothing I can do about Miraidon though, so I let Avila go. But not even Ice Cube can stand against the cock and ball monster. Later, I sent in Oricorio, and luckily, I outspeeded and took it out with an Icy Wind. After he sent out Wo-Chien, I proceeded to miss an Icy Wind twice in a row after my first one, which meant Oricorio went down to a foul play. This stupid bird could have lived if it didn't miss a target that moves like a snail. Anyway, I still won. But then, I lost the next 2 battles. But it's okay again because I proceeded to win the next 5 battles. The first with Sinistea of all Pokemon, the second and third was just Slaughter, the fourth, Mice, the fifth, Mice and Fish. In the next battle, I start off with using Spore on the Glamora after it goes for Stealth Rock. It does wake up, but I eventually take it out with a couple of Giga Drains. He then sends out Dragapult and goes for Flamethrower. I live and put it to sleep too. I immediately switch into Haxorus while it's asleep. Not wanting to die, they switch into Flutter Mane, but Earthquake does its job. Next is Garchomp, and since I didn't think I would outspeed, I switch into Alomomola and tank an Outrage. I lower its attack with Chilling Water and then Protect for more HP recovery. Eventually, I switched into Among Us to put it to sleep, but it didn't work. I then switched into Chi-Yu and finished Garchomp off with a Dark Pulse. Garganacl comes out, so I have to swap into Haxorus. He sets up Iron Defense, which makes things more annoying for me, but I got a crit Earthquake, so it was all in vain. So what did my opponent do next? Yep, but the next guy was sweeping me with Koraidon. So what did I do? Yep, for the next battle, I knew I had to win this one. I was using my favorite Pokemon of all time, Lucario. With his power on my side, I knew I could win this, right? Yeah, I won. But these 2 Pokemon I had to replace the Fallen with caused my defeat in this battle. In the next one, I have to fight another Palafin user. They immediately swap into Iron Valiant against Dragapult, so I have to go into Crocalor to potentially burn it with Will-O-Wisp, but I end up burning the Ting-Lu instead. After I bring in Lurantis, I could take it down with 2 Leaf Blades. Next comes in Armorage, so I bring in Lycanroc to take a Shadow Ball. They decide not to switch, so Stone Edge is enough to take it down as well. After they bring in Iron Valiant, I swap back into Crocalor to try and burn it again. Yeah, I'd probably do the same to be honest. There's no way I can win a battle against a team like this. Oh, another Rage Quit. The battles resulted as follows. Win, no win. Win, win again, win, but with extra measure. I can explain every battle, okay? In the next battle, my opponent tried to scare me with the big overpowered dragon, but Endeavor plus Ice Shard made it go away. That was Phanpy's one and only job, so I just let it go. Next, I send in Vespiquen. After trading blows, I eventually take it out with a few attack orders, but Sylveon comes in and takes Vespiquen out. Next, I send in Komala, and of course I miss a Giga Impact on Sylveon. So their idea was to just let Leafeon die instead. Then they send in their other overpowered dragon. I was able to get some damage off of it with Diglett, but it still fell in the end. Running low on options, I send in Tandem Mouse, Livid Dragon Pulse, and take out Miraidon with Population Bomb. It went down to Little Fuecoco though. I did finish the Fuecoco off with Silicobra, but Sylveon was still in the back, which made me lose the battle. But with an entirely new team at hand, I felt semi-confident in winning. I start off with using Flower Trick and Belly Bolt, in which after it goes for Acid Spray. I immediately switch while they immediately Terrasilize. After, they bring in Annihilate and tank an Earth Power. We trade blows until it eventually takes out Statigas. I bring in Meowscarada and take it out with a knockoff. I have to switch again into Abomasnow, but they use Dragon Tail to force Froakie in. The ferocious dragon got scared of a frog, so they brought in Belly Bolt, as I actually freeze it with Ice Beam. And instead of letting it go down, they switch out into Iron Hands. So I just let go Froakie down because I just don't care about it. But I do take out Iron Hands with Meowscarada. They send in Skeledirge and I can't touch it at all, so I bring in Skuntank. As I was able to take it down, they decided to switch into Pachirisu. So I killed the dumb Pikachu clone. Then they sent in Skeledirge back in to take it out. Skuntic was able to take down his last remaining Pokemon as well, making me the winner. And it would seem that my wins are actually starting to catch up. How about I just show you a mini montage of the next few battles and how they went. Let me just say that the battles that Altaria was involved in became very stally and sort of uninteresting. So I'll just go over the last one that involved it. We start off with our flying birds. We both have a stall battle while trying to take the other down. Eventually, they decide to U-turn out into Dragonite. Unfortunately, after Dragonite set up a Dragon Dance, I knew for a fact that it would have completely swept my team in quick succession. So I had no other choice but to run. It was at this point where this challenge started to take a turn for the worst. I've gone through multiple upon multiple battles, with the majority of them resulting in loss. Of course I did win some of them, 7 of them in fact, but nothing could compare to the brutality I had gone through. After I was making some sort of comeback, I thought I had a chance to actually win. I thought I could salvage some sort of victory. But loss after loss was starting to make me think, why did I put myself through this suffering? How much more could I take? Is this even possible? That's when I realized something. The last hour I had of doing this challenge was brutal. With the teams I was given near the end, none of the battles were really that close. Eventually, I got down to my final Pokémon, one snot-nosed Cubchoo. He was our savior. I started the battle, and she leads off with Pyroar, and it goes for Crunch. But it's okay, because I have a Focus Sash. Because of that, I got a critical hit with Ice Punch. But still, it wasn't enough, and Cubchoo went down. Why did I put myself through this suffering? How much more could I take? Is this even possible? That's when I realized something. It was inevitable. No matter how hard I tried, the strategies I could make, I lost the battle. But that didn't mean that the war was over. With the new DLC coming out in a few months, I will have access to new and returning Pokemon. I may have failed this time, but this will be my redemption.